All right, good morning. So we're going to talk about some bars today. I think this is a relevant topic for cutting firewood. I think you want to have a bar that's decent. We're going to kind of go over what I think is good, better, best, and what you should not buy. Because money doesn't go nearly as far as what it used to nowadays, so everyone's after the best value. We're popping this cover off this 395 because I was also going to show you this Canon Duralite bar. So all the bars here, well, most of them I have had a lot of time on because I cut a lot of wood. Cutting firewood is probably the hardest thing on a saw, is because you're making cut after cut after cut. They're running the saw a lot, you're making a lot of cuts, and I think that's probably the hardest environment for a saw and a bar and a chain to live in. So this is the Farmertech 395 that I ran yesterday. I think I posted that yesterday. I'll probably post this video Sunday morning, but it's Saturday morning right now. So one thing why I just showed you this is this saw, what's really nice about the 395 is it has very good oil output. That's something that I always heard about these larger saws. So, this saw specifically, the Husqvarna saws really pump the oil out, which is a good thing, because cutting firewood, your chain will get hot, especially in the summertime if you're not running good bar oil that's got good cooling properties. You will load your chain up with pitch, and I think I made a YouTube short showing the pitch build up on the chain when the chain has gotten too hot. So the other thing here, so this is an 8-tooth drive sprocket, and hopefully my camera is angled. I'm running the GoPro on my head so I can use both my hands and kind of show you exactly what I'm talking about. So you can see in here, hopefully, this this space. So the 8-tooth drive sprocket lifts the bar, or lifts the chain out of the bar groove here just a slight little bit. So the bar will actually wear more right here, because it's trying to, this is a normal 7-tooth, it's going to wear all in here. So an 8-tooth, you will throw a chain quicker than a 7-tooth. I just threw an 8 on this just to see how it would do. Personally, I like the 7-tooth better with a more aggressive chain. And then if you really want it to cut fast, you just kind of pull on it a little bit or dig the spikes in. But I just ran an 8-tooth just to show the saw. It's got quite a bit of power. So here's the oil groove here. We'll follow that up here. If you run really anything bigger than an 8-tooth on your saw, your chain is not going to be able to pick that oil up. So that's only really for cutting cookies. An 8-tooth 404, same problem. That was the problem that I was having with my 20-inch Sumara bar. My 20-inch Sumara bar, I guess I can go get that real quick. That one's also got quite a bit of time on it. Here it is. So this is my first splitting bar. So I ran this on my 661 with a 404 chain. We'll just put them up here for a second. So what this is a 404 tip 063 bar, and I was running an 8-tooth drive sprocket on it initially, and then I just had to basically wire wheel the chain every time that I went to sharpen it. So then I realized what was going on, and it was because, just like what I was talking about here, is that 8-tooth 404 is actually like a 3/8 9-tooth, so that sprocket's pretty big. I guess I can grab that here real quick. I think I got it up on the shelf here. Yeah. So here's an 8-tooth 404, and you can see that, relative to this oil slot, you can kind of just see that kind of the path that chain's going to follow. So that it wasn't picking up enough oil to cool the chain. But if you're gonna build a dedicated splitting setup, these bigger 880 bars, I'll just put this one, this is just your standard still mount versus the 880 mount, the larger mount. You can see how much thicker that the bar is here. So that's one important thing to note. So we'll pull this off real quick because I want to talk about this one as well. This is a Canon Duralite 24-inch. I have had a lot of time. I put a lot of time on that bar there. Probably ran through 6-7 chains on that bar. I mean, I can't quite tell you like this is exactly how many cords of wood that I've cut with it. I can just give you a range, and I can kind of tell you how many chains that I've ran on, you know, some of these little bit newer bars that I have. The older ones I just don't remember. I can just tell you that they've cut a lot. So get these tools out of the way. So Samara, decent bars. I have 2 Samaras. I actually have 3, but 2 to show you here that have the most time on them. So both of these, I would say that the Samara is a good value for the price. I think it's the cheapest lightweight bar. I don't like the Sugiharas. They just don't look as good. That's just the only reason that I didn't choose one of those over this one. I just think that these look better. And I don't know which one was cheaper, but I mean, this is a good value for what you're getting. The material is pretty hard. Hopefully my camera can kind of pick this up. So the bar here, I was running an 8-tooth on my 661. That's what I did a lot of cutting with this bar. This bar has probably cut 60 cords of wood. You can kind of see the wear on the back of the rails here. I've only had to dress the rails on this one once. I just did it with a belt sander just to smooth them up so it's not going to cut your hands. I haven't had to pinch the rail or anything like that. I haven't done anything like that to it. So that's this one. I would say a solid 60 cords of wood has been cut on this one, and it was with an 8-tooth, which is a little bit harder on the bar in general. The tip is still good. Tip seems to roll freely. I always blow this out and grease it up every time I throw a new chain on it. That's just all. Just do like one squirt with my little pumper. I like these bars that actually have a grease cert in them, like the smaller homeowner style still bars do not have that. This Archer one, oh, it does have oil on one side. So we'll talk about the worst bars last. That's kind of what you want to stay away from. We'll kind of move down the line here. So this is the Canon. Let me blow them off real quick. One of my Canons. Clean them up just a little bit. So the Canon, I'm just going to show you kind of the difference here. The Canon bar is a little bit thicker here at the base. You can see it's a little bit thicker, and what that allows for is better oil carrying capacity across the chain. You can see the bar is actually a little bit thicker throughout this whole section here, and then it kind of, they're about the same up here. So, and notice the placement of that oil slot. I'm going to try to keep it even. The oil slot's actually a little bit farther forward, but what they've done is they've drilled a little angled hole, kind of like what Stihl does now with their newer bars that has that little angled hole, so that it's not making such a, like, it's not making a 90-degree turn into your bar rail. So I think that this is the best. This, or the new Stihl style, is the best oiling design. My Canon Duralite definitely is the bar that has the best oiling properties. This one's the hardest to for the oil slot to get plugged up, and it's the one that I have to wire wheel the chains when they load up with pitch the least. Okay, now let's look at my Canon Super Mini. This one don't have nearly as much time on it as, you know, these 3/8 bars. But let's just look at the profile of this one. Also notice that the Cannons, what's nice about the Cannons is you can run them on the Husqvarna saws because it's got this wider bar rail, because the studs are wider on the Husqvarna saws. So you just got to run an adapter and then you're good to go. Now you see this is the Cannon Super Mini, so this is a 3/8 low pro bar. This is a fun little bar to have, especially it's really good for cutting down trees. I don't really use it for cutting like bucking trees anymore. I'll make a couple like cookie cutting videos with it or stuff like that, but I mainly now just use it just for cutting trees down because it's a little bit thinner of a bar. It's kind of nice in that respect as far as for cutting medium-sized trees down. You can, if you're trying to wedge with the smaller trees, you got a little bit more. One, the bar's a little thinner, so you can get more wedge in there for more lift. And it's just it's very smooth. It's a very smooth cutting chain. It doesn't hold an edge as long as a regular 3/8, but it's still pretty good. So that's the only thing I really use it for now. I initially bought it for my Farmertech 440 back before it was ported because I just wanted to try one of these out, just to try it out. But notice how this one's quite a bit thinner back here. This one's actually thinner than the Sumara. So this one's going to have the worst oiling properties of all these. So you must run a 7-tooth with this one. I've tried an 8-tooth. Chain was getting too hot. Also, it was very easy to throw the chain because the 3/8 low pro chain, the links don't stick as far down into the groove here either. That's one of the reasons why I run the 404 chain for cutting logs in half, because the chain doesn't like to walk as much in the cut. You know, when you're cutting the logs, you're noodling them, the chain kind of wants to walk to one side or the other, I find, with the 3/8 chain. So I run the 404 one because it's more durable. It's gonna I'm gonna be able to make more rips with one of those chains than a 3/8 chain. It clears the noodles better. It has better oiling properties as well. And that's the other thing, when you're ripping the logs in half, it's much easier to overheat the chain. So that's kind of hence why I have an 880 that I've modified that's really specifically only for doing that. I also cut some stumps with it with this bar, but it's mainly for cutting the logs in half. 880, great oiler output. It can oil like a 60-inch bar or whatever they say. But you don't want your chain to overheat, and then you don't want to have to wire wheel it because that just is annoying. So it's a little bit about that. So this is the Super Mini. What bar is the best of all of these? I'd say that the Cannon is the best bar. I mean, Cannon is the best. I've never had to dress anything. I haven't had to do anything on this bar. And this one I'd say has cut at least 50 cords of wood. I got this one after I got this Sumara. This is my first lightweight bar. So I cut like 2 seasons on this one. And then I kind of switched over to this one because I was having some oiling problems with running that 8-tooth with this one on my 661 back in those days. So I bought this one and that fixed that problem. I could still run an 8-tooth on it. And yeah. So Cannon is the best. This one, I haven't had to do anything to the rails. They say that this bar is actually like 5 points harder on the hardness scale than the chains itself. So theoretically, I mean, you shouldn't have to dress the rails, I guess, really ever. You know, theoretically, but I'm sure that you have to, and you know, it will eventually wear. It'll just take a lot longer than these other bars to actually, you know, wear down. So Cannon is your best. These bars are somewhat expensive now, but in my opinion, if you're cutting a lot and you take care of your stuff, this is a good value. Sumara, decent value. This one's, I'd say this is going to be your middle of the road. Best bang for your buck, especially if you're not cutting a lot. I mean, if you're only cutting 10 cords a year or less, this is a great value. You know, you're going to get 6-7 years, or probably more than that, because this one's not even worn out, but you're going to get several years worth of life out of it before you really even need to do anything to it. You know, these, especially these ones with these sprocket nose, I mean, they'll last a long time. We're talking hundreds of cords of wood that you'll be able to cut as long as you don't get her pinched, bend your bar, anything like that. That's kind of, you know, the end of the life of it if you do something like that. But yeah, I'd say that the Samara is your best value. It's definitely, it's softer than the Canon, and it's also softer than the Stihl bars. So even these Stihl bars that are not the professional sprocket nose ones, the metal hardness seems to be the same. You will have to dress the rails on the Stihl bars. That's why you can see this kind of outline here. That's why I brought this one out, to kind of show you that the rails were dressed. It doesn't take that long to do. It's just something that you will have to do. With these ones, you'll wear the tip out before you wear the bar out. That's why they offer sprocket nose bars, so you can replace the tip. And if you only want to buy one bar, I recommend getting one with a replaceable tip, because then you will be able to run that for a very long time. You know, replace the tip and then run it for another very long time. So that's my thoughts on that. And then if you're going to get one of these ones with a replaceable tip, you need to get one of those little $10 pumpers. I bought mine at Lowe's. It's a little grease pump that's made specifically for this. You'll need to do that every time you sharpen your chain. You don't need to do it every time you go cut, but I think every time you sharpen your chain, that's a good interval for when you should do it. And then when I do it, I'll spin the chain, pump a little grease in it, spin it a little bit more, pump a little bit more, just to get this all saturated in here. That's just how I'm doing it. So now let's get to the one that you should stay away from. So I got one bar here. This one doesn't have a lot of time on it, but it seems to be okay as far as the metal hardness. So I'd say Archer is okay. Personally, I wouldn't buy another Archer unless I was going to hardly use it at all. But Archer seems to be okay if you're not going to use it a lot. What I would stay away from is these no-name bars. Even though if it says that it's made in Germany, like it's stamped here, this bar is junk. Hopefully my GoPro can pick up all the damage that's already been done to this. The rails are not smooth. They're all pitted. They're very sharp. I mean, I only ran this saw or this chain on the 880 like maybe 3, 4, 5 tanks, something like that. I mean, not that much time before my 25-inch Canon bar that I had to have custom made came. That took a whole year for them to make that. But you can see the rails are already mushroomed over here. What I've done here is I just ground off all the paint, because the paint on here is so cheap that it was clogging up my where it mounts to the saw, and I wasn't able to adjust the chain, so I just ground all that paint off back here so I could still use it. And the 20-inch with the big spikes on it is actually a little bit too short for the length of wood that I was cutting, so that was the other little problem. But I would stay away from these unknown, non-name brand bars. These are the ones that you want to stay away from, because unless you're only gonna, even then I would spend just a little bit more money and get something that at least has like a brand name on it, like Samara, Archer. This one said that it was I think it said that it was a laser or something. I think that's what it was, but this one was no good. The tip seems to be okay, so they put a decent tip on it, but the bar itself, and this was the cheapest one that I could get on eBay because I didn't have a lot of money back when I bought this, and I just thought that it'd be okay because I was really only cutting logs in half. But even just doing that, I mean, this bar is just kind of a piece of junk. It's not worth it. I would rather spend double the money, get something good that's going to last, that you're not going to have to screw with, because I would much rather be doing other stuff than working on cheap junk. That's what this one is. So we'll do a little recap here. We went all over the place. So the best, if you want to get the best of the best, I'd get a Canon. That way you can run them on both Husqvarna and Stihl saws, and I guess the other ones too if you get the adapters. So I think Canon is the best of the best. If you know you're experienced cutter, you're not gonna pinch your bar cutting trees down and bend your bar. You're gonna get it pinched in a log and bend it that way. Go with the Canon. If you're not as experienced and you still want a lightweight bar, but you don't want to pay over $200 for one, you only want to pay $100, I would get one of these Samaras. Good value. pretty good quality bar, pretty light, and these are pretty light. They're pretty comparable. I say for the weight, this one's maybe a little bit heavier, you know, but not enough to notice when it's on the saw. So this is a good value. I would recommend this, especially if you're not an experienced cutter, because the Stihl light bars are also pretty expensive. I do like the Stihl lightweight bars as well. There's nothing wrong with those. These are just better. So, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with just your standard Stihl bars. If you're going to run it for a long time, stay away from these homeowner ones that don't have a replaceable sprocket nose, because the first thing that will wear out is the tip, and you can't do anything about that. So then you just got to throw it away or hang it on your wall. So Tsumura, good value. I'm only speaking on the ones that I have. I don't have experience with some of these other Japanese-made ones like Sugihara. I'm only speaking about the ones that I have personal experience with. Archer, some of these other ones like that, I'm sure that they're okay. But personally, I would stick to, you know, these bigger name brand ones. I think Archer they also make chain and stuff. I was not impressed with the Archer chain. In the future, I will make a specific video where I only talk about chains. I'm pretty biased on the chains. That's a little bit there of what I think about chains, but this one will just stick to bars, and the next little video like this, I'll specifically talk about chains and kind of give my opinion on those as well. So yeah, so hopefully this video was helpful. You got some good information out of it. Thanks for watching.